Salawat par Muhammad. And another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي خلق الإنسان وعلمه البيان وأنزل على عبده الفرقان ليكون للعالمين نذيرا والصلاة والسلام على من جعله شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه والسراجا منيرا العبد المؤيد والرسول المصدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد وصلى الله عليه وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الغر الميامين ولا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين الحجة بن الحسن العسكري عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد. دعاء إمام الزمان إن شاء الله. اللهم كن لوليك صلواتك لا أباي في هذه الساعة وفيك وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. What makes us angry? What makes you angry? People who drive like lunatics, somebody who turns into your parking spot, a sister being teased by her brother, maybe. Does it annoy you and does it make you angry when somebody starts to text a friend whilst you're trying to hold a serious conversation? A wife may become angry at her husband when he says that the words kitchen and sink do not exist in his version of the English dictionary. There are many things that we need to understand about anger. And we need to understand that anger is a choice. This is the 7th of a series of lectures on the illness of the heart. If you remember, in the first lecture, we defined the 3 types of heart. We said that the heart can be qalbi salim, which is the heart which is the most tranquil, peaceful, and radiant. Then we have the qalbi munib. MashaAllah, everyone has full marks. Qalbi munib. The qalbi munib is which heart? The heart where the heart that returns constantly to Allah, the Most High. And then we have the heart, which is qalbi mariz. The qalbi mariz. And in this month of Muharram, we promise Imam Hussein and Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, salamullah alayhi, to try and move our hearts from the qalbi mariz to the qalbi munib, a heart that is repenting. And we said that this qalbi mariz when it is inflicted by the pathogens of spiritual illness, can cause one to doubt, to become proud, arrogant, have signs of disbelief, hatred, backbite, gossip, be suspicious of other people. And tonight's illness that we will look at is the illness of the heart, which is known as anger. And if you remember, we said that anger is a choice. We find that the ulama of akhlaq, they define 4 types of powers of this soul. If you remember in the first lecture, we said that what is the soul? And there is different names for the soul. The soul can be called either the nafs, the ruh, the aql, or the qalb. And we said that this soul is this heavenly essence that drives us, that drives our bodies to achieve its aims and objectives. There are 4 powers of the soul. The first power is called quwwat aqaliyah, the power of intellect. It is this great angelic power that we have that helps us distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. Quwwat aqaliyah. The second power is the power of quwwat shahwiyah, the power of desire. There can be good desires or bad desires. The good desire, for example, if we did have quwwat shahwiyah, the power of desire, the human population wouldn't continue. But then we have the animalistic desires that drives one to commit acts which causes us to blacken this heart. So we have the quwwat aqaliyah, quwwat shahwiyah, and the third is the quwwat wahmiyah, the power of imagination. If you look at the great scientists like Einstein, Kekulé, Dmitry Mendeleev, most of their discoveries were made when they were sleeping and dreaming and imagining. Einstein, for example, imagined he was traveling on a ray of light, and he was imagining how would it feel if I were to travel at the speed of light. So this power of wahmiyah, the power of imagination, is very powerful. But then you have the evil effects. I'm sorry, due to the screen, I can't see the mu'mineen who are sat there. Then we have the evils of effects of quwwat wahmiyah. When you start to doubt, you start doubting, become suspicious of a person. You almost, it's if you know what that person is thinking, because that voice tells you. That voice, that quwwat wahmiyah, is telling us that this is what that person is thinking. That is why he has done something. So we have these 4 powers. And the 4th power is the quwwat ghadabiyah, which is the power of anger. If you were to walk down a dark alley and you were approached by 2 or 3 people in hoodies, and you were about to be attacked, it is this quwwat ghadabiyah that would help to defend yourself. So quwwat ghadabiyah, the power of ghadab, means anger. Anger is good because it helps us in some cases to defend ourselves. So we have advantages of anger. And the first advantage we find is that it provides safety and security. If I see a brother who is, or a sister, who is openly transgressing, who's committing sin openly, and if this doesn't make me angry, if this doesn't make me cross, because I don't have this quwwat ghadabiyah, this power of anger, will I be able to enjoin good and forbid evil? Of course not. So there are advantages of having anger. The first, security. Second, defense. And also enabling one to enjoin good and forbidding evil. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So this power of anger is one of the greatest blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. But if you have a deficiency of this power of anger, what would happen? You would suffer from weaknesses such as timidity. You'd be timid, you'd be weak, you'd be fearful. You wouldn't be able to defend yourself. You wouldn't be able to provide security. So the deficiency of anger is something which is quite negative in that sense. Let me give you an example. Researchers at Harvard Medical School found that colleagues at work who tried to repress their frustrations at work were more likely to feel trapped under a glass ceiling. A metaphor which explains and tries to describe when one person, because he is being bullied by his line manager, for example, or a colleague at work, when he represses, when he stops his anger, tries to stop this anger, what happens? That he feels that he cannot develop. So those people who suffer from a deficiency in anger, those people will end up underperforming at work, will not be able to advance in their careers. So we understand that there are advantages of anger and there are also disadvantages of having a deficiency of anger. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali. What are the dangers of anger though? What are the dangers of anger? It is reported on the authority of our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far Sadiq salawatullah wa sallam, that anger spoils faith, just like the vinegar spoils honey. So the sweetest thing that we have is honey. The sourest thing that we have is vinegar. So our iman, this iman, is affected by anger. How? It destroys it, it erodes it. That's the first hadith. The second hadith is from Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam. He says that anger is a spark lit by shaitan. It's a spark lit by shaitan in the hearts of Bani Adam. Imagine. And then he says that anger is from shaitan. Shaitan is created from fire. Fire is extinguished from water. So whenever you become angry, what should we do? You should make wudu. I think in our communities, if this applied to everyone, especially in our communities, there would be such a long line outside the bathroom, nobody would be able to make wudu. This is one of the problems that we have. And then the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, when one of you becomes angry, so you have the cure as well. Sometimes people say, count from 1 to 10 and it will cure your anger. I say, don't need to count from 1 to 10. Just read salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, the shaitan will dispel. Muhammad wa ali. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. As Ayatul Murtaza Kashmiri once said, he says that it's like firing a gun at shaitan. Yeah, it's like firing a shotgun at shaitan, firing at him, because when you read salawat with a loud voice, he just runs away from that place. So one of the things that we do, or we could do, is to recite salawat rather than counting from 1 to 10. I know many people say, we've tried counting from 1 to 10, we've counted from 1 to 1,000, we can still not control our anger. The Prophet of Islam, as he says, that when one of you becomes angry while standing, you should do what? You should sit down. So tell the brother to sit down, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, sit down. And then if the Prophet says, if the anger leaves him, that's all good and well. But if the anger doesn't leave him, ask him to lie down. Can you imagine in our community? If this applied to our community, I think everybody would be lying down. Nobody would go to work. Nobody would go to university or college. We would all be lying down on our back because we have so much anger, don't we? Yeah? Allahu Akbar is a good one as well. When I walked in, I found no slippers and my socks became wet and muddy. That made me a bit angry. And I just said, Allahu Akbar, as I was going down the stairs. Anyway. قال الإمام الصادق عليه السلام. He says, صل على محمد آله. In a hadith he says, من كف غضبه ستر الله عورته. He says, the one who suppresses his anger, the one who controls his anger, Allah will conceal his defects. Allah will seal and conceal his blemishes. So this is one of the advantages of controlling your anger. As we read in Dua Joshan Kabir, Ya Satira Kulli Ma'ayub, oh, the one who conceals our defects. So through controlling our anger, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seals from the people any defects or blemishes that you may have in your character. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alim. Now to all the teenagers who are listening. Sometimes I agree. There's times, there was a time when I was a teenager, a long time ago. There are times we don't agree with our parents. There are times when we don't agree with our teachers. And we become so angry. You know, the thing with anger, it causes an agitation in the heart. The blood starts to pump, and you are overcome with a feeling of vengeance and revenge. Yes or no? So what I would say is that sometimes when your parents or your teachers say something, you get angry. But the reason we become angry is because we're not trying to understand the reason behind the comment. Let me give you an example. Religious education teacher at the college advises the year 11 students that you shouldn't attend the end of year prom because it's haram. Because you shouldn't attend a gathering. Whatever, he said it's haram, you shouldn't go. The students leave his classroom in a very angry state. They come to me and I begin to explain. I said, do you know the reason why we don't want the prom in this school? The reason we want to cancel the prom this year is because last year when you had the prom, a father came into reception and he said that a friend of mine told me that my daughter is on the internet for the whole world to see without hijab. All of a sudden, 27 students in my class, they started to think and said, you know, sir, you're so right, Mr. Shah, we never thought of it in that way. We don't need to do the prom. You see the power of understanding. See the quwwat aqaliyah. When you get angry, the anger clouds the quwwat aqaliyah. You lose control. There was an incident once where a man phones the police, the emergency services. Which service would you like? The police. What's happened? I've just killed my wife. Where is she? She's in the passenger seat. So just one moment of rage and anger, of agitation of this heart, caused this man to kill. You see the dangers of anger. And therefore we should understand this important illness of the heart. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Which comes to the story of Sayyid Hussein Ayatollah Burujardi, rahmatullah alayh, the leading marja from Iran from the period of 1947 to 1961. Ayatollah Burujardi makes a vow, another. We say nazar, don't we, yeah? Another, a vow. And this is what he said. He says, if I ever utter an inappropriate word, my Lord, if I ever utter from this mouth an inappropriate word, I will fast for the entire year. Ayatollah Burujardi sat on the mimbar and he's delivering a lecture. When Ayatollah Burujardi used to give lectures and give dars, the crowd would be like this. Everybody wearing amama, yeah? Making notes in his dars. He's giving the dars, and whilst giving the dars, a student stands up and he questions a comment that the Ayatollah makes. And he says, okay, we'll speak. We'll talk about this later. He then gets up again, makes a second comment. On the third objection, what does Ayatollah Burujardi say? Momentarily, Ayatollah Burujardi becomes angry and with an annoyed tone, he said from the pulpit, from the mimbar, be quiet, young man. And then he remembered his nazar. He remembered the vow that he made with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ayatollah Burujardi descends from the mimbar. He goes through the crowd. He goes to that young boy. This is Ayatollah Burujardi at his marja. He's an old man. His beard is grey. He's followed by thousands, millions around the world. He comes down from the mimbar. He goes through the crowd, and there's a young man, student. Our Ayatollah studied 50, 60 years. I met an Ayatollah I met a student in Najaf. I said, Sheikh, how long have you been studying? You must be now Ayatollah or part Ayatollah in certain masail. He goes, no, I've been studying 50 years. I'm still attending the Dars Kharij of Ayatollah Fayyad. 50 years, can you imagine? 50 years of your life on understanding the deen. It's simple for us. We just pick up Tawzeeh Masail, it's translated in English or Urdu. Very easy, isn't it? But they spend their whole life, dedicate their whole life. If you look at Sayyid Sistani, as I mentioned, maybe I mentioned last year, I can't remember. But it's good to remind ourselves. Ayatollah Sistani, his house is literally 2 or 3 meters from the Haram of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the Sayyid can't make ziyarah for the reason that he knows that if he makes a ziyarah, it causes inconvenience to the security services. And if he is assassinated, then the people who need and refer to his masail would have no one to refer to. So this is the sacrifice that the ulama make. Ayatollah Burjardi descends from the minbar. He goes through the crowd of ulama, of the students of knowledge. He takes the hand of this young student. He lowers his head. He kisses the hand. He takes his cloak off. He gives the cloak to the student, and he hands over 500 toman. 500 toman in those days is a lot of money. And what does he say? Ayatollah Burjardi says, forgive the mistake of Burjardi. I do not understand how the reins of my soul slip from my hands and why I asked you to be quiet in front of all of these students. And it is said that Ayatollah Burjardi fasted for the entire year. This is how the ulama train their souls. So when it's coming to anger, as we mentioned, anger in this hadith, al-ghadab, which is the word in Arabic for anger, al-ghadab miftahu kulli shar. Anger is the key to every vice. It's when we are angry, we fight. We don't even care it's the Imam's house. We don't care if it's the house of Allah. This is why Imam Hussein had to leave Mecca on the 8th of Dhul Hijj. We don't care of the sacredness even of the house of Allah. We may even fight in the Imam's house. Why? Because we are angry. So one of the things we need to remember is a hadith in which the Imam said, and this hadith is from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. That anger opens the door to every evil. Murder. If you look at why people murder, what is the root cause of murder? Anger. What is the root cause of people who take drugs? Anger. Anger with society, anger with parents, anger with themselves. Why? Because this heart is still at the stage of qalbi mariz. And this is why, if you remember a few nights ago, myself, all of us, the sisters, all of us in this center promised Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we promised Fatima Zahra salamu alayha, we promised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We promised all of them that, oh my Allah, by the right of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, by the end, before this month of Muharram ends, I will try and give up one bad habit. I will try and cure some of the illnesses in my heart. If I become angry, how can I cure this? There's an ayah from the Holy Quran which I would like to share with you. And in this ayah from the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, خُذِّ الْأَفْ. Take to forgiveness. And there's research that shows that those people who forgive, it helps you lower your blood pressure. It reduces stress. It reduces depression. So one of the things that we need to learn is forgiveness. So I invite myself, I invite everybody listening to this majlis tonight, that inshallah the next time we ever become angry, to try and recite salawat. Try and sit down if we have to. Try, make wudu. But most importantly, try and forgive the person who has upset you. And if we do this, then shaitan will not be able to attack this heart. As you remember, as the Prophet ﷺ says, that anger is from shaitan. So that's something that we need to work on, inshallah. What is the opposite of anger? What is the antonym of anger? Mildness, forbearance. And these are the two characteristics that build our soul. When you show patience, forbearance, when you show mildness. Do you remember the ayah from the Quran in the first or second lecture where it was mentioned that Allah, when He addresses Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, He says that indeed if you were a person of a hard heart, the people would have moved from you, dispersed from around you. And I will tell you the importance of, I will let the words of the greatest man that walked on this earth, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, tell you. Salli ala Muhammad. He says, forgiveness. Khudh al-af. Forgiveness raises a man's station. It raises a man's station. Forgive so that Allah honors you. So to conclude, anger destroys our iman. Anger destroys relationships. Anger blackens this heart and reduces the light in this heart. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the right of Muhammad Ali Muhammad to give us the tawfiq and the strength in this holy month, before this month is over, to move from the qalbi maris to qalbi munib. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. On the nights of Ashura, Imam Hussein was worshipping in his tent. Just imagine that you are in the tent of Imam Hussein. What would you see? You would see that the Imam is sat on his musalla, this qalb salim, on the eve of this massacre in Karbala, and he is worshipping Allah. He's worshipping his master, his creator, his sustainer, his cherisher, his Lord. Whilst Imam Hussein is worshipping, he feels that somebody has entered his tent and sits beside him. Imam alayhi salam finishes his worship, his prayers, his munajat, and he turns to his right and he finds a 13-year-old boy by the name of Qasim. Qasim is sat next to his uncle, and the Imam says, Qasim, it is very late. What are you doing here? You should be with your mother. And he says, Uncle, it is my mother who sent me to you. She says, everybody will go into the battlefield. Ask your uncle, are you among those who will go into the battlefield tomorrow? The greatest support and comfort for a widow is her orphan son. And what does this widow want? She wants nothing but Qasim to go into the battlefield. Qasim inquires. He says, Uncle, is my name among the names of the martyrs? His uncle says, Ya bunayya, kayfa indaka al-maut? He says, Oh, my son, how do you see death at this moment? And Hazrat Qasim, the son of Hassan and Mujtaba, says, He says, my uncle, I see death sweeter than honey. 13 years old. Allahu Akbar. He said, your name, my son, is among the martyrs. Ali Asghar's name is also among the martyrs. Hazrat Qasim says, does that mean that the soldiers will enter the tents of the women? He says, no, I will have Ali Asghar on my hands. Ashura arrives. Ashura arrives. Everyone is given permission except Qasim. Everyone is given permission except Qasim. The children of Aqil are sacrificed. Hazrat Qasim comes to his uncle. He says, uncle, give me permission to fight. Imam Hussein looks at Qasim. He stares at Qasim, but he doesn't say anything. The brother of Abbas goes into the battlefield. He is martyred. Hazrat Qasim goes to his uncle again. My uncle, give me permission to fight. Give me permission to go into the battlefield. Imam Hussein stares at Qasim and he remains quiet. And then we find that the sons of Ja'far go into the battlefield. Again, Qasim asks for permission. Imam Hussein does not reply. I'd like to take you back to Medina tonight. I'd like you to imagine what the scene. This scene is when Hassan Mujtaba is lying on his deathbed. He calls Qasim, he was just a small child. Hazrat Qasim comes to his father. Hassan Mujtaba kisses his small child and hands over the ta'weez. And he ties the ta'weez. We tie the ta'weez for protecting our life. Ali Muhammad give ta'weez to save Islam, for their children to become shaheed. Qasim takes the ta'weez to his uncle. Hussein opens the ta'weez. He recognizes the writing, the khat of his brother Hassan, and eyes begin to flow with tears. He starts to cry. He begins to read the letter of his brother Hassan Mujtaba. What does Imam Hassan write? He says, my brother Hussein, a day will come when Islam will need to be saved by sacrifice. Oh Hussein, I will not be there. Hussein, I will not be there on that day. However, my son Qasim will be there, and it is my wish that Qasim should represent me on that day. He should represent me on that. My dearest Qasim, how can I stop you now? Go, Qasim. The Imam takes Qasim's hand and goes to the tent of Sayyida Zainab. He goes to Sayyida Zainab and he says, Qasim is going into the battlefield. Bring the amama of Imam Hassan. Bring the abba of Imam Hassan. And both dress Qasim in the clothes of Imam Hassan. Both of them are looking at Hazrat Qasim and they're beginning to cry because Hazrat Qasim reminds them of their brother, Hazrat Imam Hassan Mujtaba. Hussein then dresses Qasim in the battle uniform and gives him a sword. But you know, this boy of 13 years old, he is so small. There are so many small children gathered in this majalis of Imam Hussein. He was so small that his sword was touching the ground he walked on. And Hazrat Qasim he was so tiny that he couldn't even climb on the horse. He couldn't even climb on the horse. Hazrat Abul Fadl al-Abbas, he helps Hazrat Qasim onto the horse. And we find in the Maqtal that his feet couldn't even reach the stirrups of the horse. But this young boy of Hassan was keen to save Islam. Hassan. In Medina, Hassan was known for his beauty. Hassan was such a handsome and beautiful man. And his son also, Hazrat Qasim, was also known for his beauty. When Hazrat Qasim enters the battlefield, the enemies of Allah said, it looks as if it's the the moon has appeared in the night sky. They look at Hazrat Qasim. My question is that if the enemies look upon Qasim and they think he's so beautiful like the moon in the night sky, how must his mother feel? How must his uncle Hussein feel when they sent him into the battlefield? It is mentioned that Qasim fights gallantly in the battlefield, and everyone who comes before him, they cannot stand the sword of the son of Hazrat Imam Hassan Mujtaba. But then one of the cowards of Yazid, what does he do? What does he do? He comes from behind and he strikes Hazrat Qasim's head with a sword. He strikes his head with a sword. Imam Hazrat Qasim's face is covered in blood. His clothes is covered in blood. The shoes of Hazrat Qasim are covered in blood. And he falls from his horse. And as he falls from his horse, he cries out, Ya Amma, come to my help. Ma Ya Amma, help me now. I need your assistance. Hussein and Abul Fadl Abbas rush to the battlefield. Dreadful events unfold. The enemies of Islam thought that Hussein and Abbas are coming to attack. They thought that Hussein and Abbas are coming to attack, and in the confusion, the horses run from one side to the other. And as they are running from one side to the other, Hazrat Qasim's body is trampled. And Hazrat Qasim's body is trampled upon. And the ribs of Hazrat Qasim, the ribs of Hazrat Qasim are crushed by the hooves of the horses. Imagine the feeling of Imam Hussein. Imagine how you would feel watching this scene as the dust is up in the air, and as this dust settles in the desert. What does Imam Hussein find? What does the uncle of Hazrat Qasim find? He does not find the body in one place. He finds the arms, the legs scattered on the plains of Karbala. Wa Qasima, wa Hasana, wa Husayna. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ridan bi qadahi wa tasliman li amri. Allahumma ighfir li warhamni wa tub alayya innaka anta at-tawwabur rahim. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون